An array is a tool used in most programming languages that allow us to store and work with multiple values of the same data type, but the trick is using a single variable name. Starting on line 8, I'm declaring an array called seasons. It's a string array, and I'm giving it some initial values. It has the values fall, winter, spring, and summer. If I didn't use an array, how many variables would I need to identify each season? 4, right? 1 to hold fall, 1 to hold winter, 1 to hold spring, and 1 to hold summer. So it's nice because now I have one variable name called seasons, and I can access the individual elements in that array. Right below that, I have another example of how to declare an array. This is a numeric array. This one I have int, numbers is the name of the array, square bracket, and I have a size of 10, close square bracket. When you're declaring an array, you can declare it in two ways. You can use the empty brackets like you see in line 8 if you have an initializer list, like I do saying fall, winter, spring, and summer. On line 9, I'm showing how to declare an array that has a size value. So it has to be one of those two. You can't declare an array such as int numbers and don't put a size in there. An array is a fixed size, so in this case, a size of 10. Let's write a for loop that will ask the user to enter in values, and I'll store them in my numbers array. So when you're working with arrays, a lot of times you will use a for loop to either navigate through the values or to ask for values and put values into the array. So I'm going to declare int I equals 0 as long as I is less than 10, I plus plus. And inside of my for loop, I'm going to ask the user to enter a number. When they do, I want to read that number into my array. Let me stop here for a second. There are a couple of things I want to point out. The first thing is that to access an element in an array, you use what we call an index value. And arrays always start with the index value 0. So on line 8, the value fall is at position 0 or index value 0 in the seasons array. Winter is in position 1, spring is in position 2, and summer is in position 3. So this array has 4 elements and the index values are 0 to 3. So on my for statement on line 10, I start with 0 because that's the very first element, and I want to go to 9. So that's why I have I less than 10 and not I less than or equal to 10. Because if I try and access the 10th element, that's going to give me an out of bounds error. All right, so now on line 13, I'm going to read in the value the user entered into the numbers array. And the way that I tell it where to put it is I use the square brackets. And in this case, I'm going to use I to reference each index value of each element in my numbers array. So the first number will go in position 0, second will go in position 1, etc. When I'm all done, I'm going to go ahead and print out my array. So I'll go ahead and add a second for loop. Let's do int I equals 0, while I is less than 10, I plus plus. And right after that, I'm just going to say cout numbers bracket I bracket. Because I only want to do the one thing, I don't have to use curly brackets around the cout statement. So for that for loop, it will execute the cout command every time until I gets to the number 10. All right, let's just go ahead and run this and see how this works. So we're going to enter in some numbers. So I'll just do 3, 45, 6, 2, 45 again, 36, 7, 9, 11, and 12. And it printed them out. Now they're all smushed together because I didn't add any spaces, but I just want you to see when I entered the numbers in, it stored it into the array. All right, let me hit enter and go back to the program. I'm going to close my output window so I can see more of my program at once. All right, that's how you can print it out. I'm going to comment out this for loop. Now, let's say we have an array of numbers and we want to find the smallest one. That is also something that's very common in programming, is to take an array of numbers and find maybe the minimum value or the maximum value, or maybe you'll even create a function to calculate the average of all the numbers. Also, too, arrays can be doubles, floats, characters, so you can have an array of any of the data types. So let's do one more thing. Let's find the minimum value entered by the user. what I need to do is that for loop is actually going to ask the user for the values. Now I'm going to create a variable to hold the smallest one. And I'm going to set it equal to the very first element in my numbers array. I don't know if that's going to remain the smallest one, but for right now, if I'm just looking at that number, it has to be the smallest one. So now I can do my for loop, and again, this time I'm going to do int I equals, but I want to start at 1 because I already have the value of the very first element in my variable called min, and I want to continue all the way through the loop. And what I want to do is I want to go and look at each element, and I'm going to say if the element in the numbers array, so if numbers bracket I bracket is less than the current minimum. So I'm checking against the value that I have as my min, and if it is smaller, then now I have a new min. So I'm going to say min is equal to numbers bracket I bracket. Let me scroll down a little bit. And that's going to continue through and look at each number in the array. And when I'm all done, I will print out the new minimum value. The smallest number entered was, and we'll print out min. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this. And again, it's going to ask us to enter our 10 numbers. So let's see, I'm going to just do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I'll do 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5. And the smallest number entered was the number 1, which is correct. So we could also access each element in the seasons array the same way. We would do seasons bracket 0 bracket, and if we wanted to, we could print that out and it would have the word fall. So let's just take a look what would happen if I did try and go past the end of my array. So I'm going to do a cout statement, and I'm going to say season. I'm actually going to make an error here. I'm going to say seasons, and I'm going to try and get at the 4th element in that array. Remember, their positions of the index values are 0 through 3 because the size is 4. So this is going to give me an error. So let me compile it. It compiles fine. This is actually going to be what we call a runtime error. So when I run it, that's when it tries to access that value. First, I have to get past my numbers. Now, you can see it says arrayexamples.exe has stopped working. It caused a problem. So I'm going to close the program, and you can see that I was trying to access storage outside of where the 4 values are stored in memory. And this is very dangerous in a C++ program. The benefit of using arrays is that it allows us to store multiple values with a single variable name, and then we can access those values using the square brackets and the index value.